happens when the red states run out of money? You know, Republican-led states love to talk about low taxes and small government and fiscal responsibility, and it all sounds great, right? I mean, keep more of your money, attract businesses, live free, and all of this stuff. There is one little problem with it, which is that cutting taxes means cutting revenue. And when the money runs out, who is going to pay the price? Turns out it's not just red states, it's all of us, especially us in the blue states. Because when red states slash taxes and struggle to fund basics like schools and roads, they are quietly being propped up by us in the blue states. States like Texas and Florida and Tennessee, you know, they brag about there's no state income tax and it's so cheap to live here. And it sounds awesome until you realize that they still need to pay for stuff. How do they do?
Yeah, so blue states bail out red states. Red states are net tax receivers. Blue states are net taxpayers. So yeah, you live in a blue state, you're subsidizing the red states. Now the Republican response to that sometimes is, well, it's just the blue cities within the red states. But that's just a total lie. That's just a total lie. The whole state is sucking money, and you know it's just an attempt to scapegoat the blue cities. And unfortunately, I mean, you kind of wonder if they're just motivated by racism when they say that.
It? Well, they shift the burden. Instead of income tax, they rely on sales taxes and property taxes and car registration fees. And on a percentage level, these hit low and middle income families the hardest. For example, Texas has some of the highest property taxes in the country. Instead of a progressive state income tax, which disproportionately hits the wealthy, you've got property taxes that as a share of the household budget are way more expensive for low income Texans than they are for high income Texans. You look at Florida. Florida leans on a sales tax, which takes a bigger chunk of income from poor people than from the wealthy as a share of their total household budget. So, you know, the no income tax slogan sounds okay sometimes, but it's really a shell game because the money's got to come from somewhere. And usually it comes from those who can least afford it.
Yeah, so the no income tax thing in Florida, Trump actually called Ron DeSantis out for that on the campaign trail where he was saying, hey, he has a sales tax that disproportionately harms the poor and middle class. He wants to tax you on stuff you buy, so he's just pro higher taxes. And it's like, yeah, he kind of is, at least for the poor and the middle class. So Trump was oddly correct on that one.
Brings us to the state of Kansas. In 2012, we covered it at the time. Governor Sam Brownback, a Republican, went all in on tax cuts, slashed income taxes, and said the same thing as Trump. This will boost the economy so much that we're going to do awesome. And instead, the state got a fiscal disaster. Revenue crashed, schools were gutted, roads fell apart, and by 2017, even Republicans had enough, and they said, we're going to roll back these tax cuts. Kansas is the prototypical cautionary tale in this entire thing. You cut taxes too much, you can't pay for basics. And Kansas is not alone. States like Oklahoma and Louisiana have faced similar crises. The budget shortfalls lead to cuts in education and healthcare and infrastructure. Those cuts make the state less competitive. People are less able to get themselves good jobs. The economy is weaker. Quality of life goes down for everybody. It's really a vicious circle. And the sick irony is that many of these red states rely on federal money to stay afloat. That means that taxpayers in blue states like California and New York are subsidizing the red states. And if you look at the Rockefeller Institute of Government, states like Mississippi, Kentucky, Alabama, they get way more in federal funds than they pay in federal taxes. They are taking more than they give. And it's so ironic given that red states criticize blue states and they go, big government, taxes too high, but they are the ones depending on that big government to fund their budget. It's like cutting off a branch that you're sitting on and then asking someone to hold you up and go, we don't need these branches taking up space. Well, someone's holding you up. And the consequences of the low tax policies don't disappear. When the schools are no good and the education worsens, it's worse for the state over the long term. Businesses and families don't just move to a state for low taxes. They want good schools, they want safe roads, they want reliable services. That's why when Sarah Huckabee Sanders says Arkansas is the best place to move to because it's so cheap, it's cheap partially because there's no demand. I'm so sorry to say it to people who live in Arkansas. If red states can't provide basics, the low taxes and low cost of living don't really look that good. So it's another example of how low taxes sound great in theory. I'd love to keep more of my money. Why not? But then you see that red states can't pay the cost. They turn to the federal government, and by extension, they're turning to me. They are turning to taxpayers in blue states to bail them out. It's not really fiscal responsibility. It's just passing the buck to somebody else. Guys in my...
Yes, so that is all correct. Red states are subsidized by blue states. The education thing, I appreciate that he made that point because, yeah, they have terrible education systems. They don't fund their education enough. They prioritize private schools. They go after unions too, which is obviously not helpful. Yeah, so this is a big issue, and it's something, a powerful argument to use in response to Republicans who are like, oh, you're a tax and spend leftist, you just support big government. It's like, well, no, actually, your states benefit from big government so much. And the concern is that so many Trump voters, Trump supporters, do not understand this at all. Like, we're the ones looking out for you people. You're voting for this disastrous Republican government in your state and in the presidency, and it's just bankrupting you. It's just bankrupting you. And yeah, as David Pakman said, the low cost of living doesn't mean that much when you still can't afford your basic needs and you're not getting your basic needs given to you by the government, or at least being assisted with that. So yeah, it's only really helpful, the red state economic model, for ultra wealthy people. There's this propaganda that, oh, everyone's moving to Texas and Florida because of businesses. It's like, it's just really big businesses, basically. It's not actually small businesses or middle class people. Those people prefer blue states. Blue states treat them way better. Blue states, they tax them less, actually. In the long run, maybe they tax them more immediately, but they're going to do better in the long run in the blue states because of the higher taxes that they have on the wealthy. They pay their fair share and they get good public services in return, and they don't go bankrupt. So that's how good governance works. That's how good tax policy works. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, comment, or subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. This has been the More the Merrier, and I look forward to speaking to you in my next video.